In the autumn of 1930, as the golden leaves of West Orange danced in the soft light of an afternoon that seemed to presage the end of an era, Thomas Edison received in his private study a young journalist whose name history has deliberately obscured. What should have been a routine interview about his latest inventions turned into a spiritual confession that remained buried in the Edison Company archives for over 9 decades, sealed by the inventor's express orders and later suppressed by his heirs who feared the impact of such revelations on the scientific patriarch's legacy. The manuscript, recently discovered in a sealed box in the basement of the Menlo Park Laboratory, reveals an Edison quite different from the one the world knew. No longer the pragmatic inventor obsessed with functionality, but an 83-year-old man confronting the mysteries of existence, bearing the weight of decades of experiences he had never dared to share publicly. His words, faithfully transcribed by the young reporter, echo with the urgency of someone sensing the proximity of the great unknown and unable to bear the silence about what he had discovered in the shadows of his laboratories. Edison began the interview with a seemingly casual observation about the nature of electricity. But soon his voice took on a solemn, almost reverent tone when he mentioned that not all the energy he had manipulated throughout his life followed the known laws of physics. There were invisible currents, inexplicable frequencies that his machines picked up during the quietest nights, when the laboratory was empty and only he remained among the wires and circuits, listening to whispers that came from nowhere known to science. The inventor revealed that his obsession with communication was not limited to the telegraph or the telephone. Since his first experiments with sound waves, Edison had realized that certain frequencies seemed to cross barriers that the human mind could not comprehend. For years, he secretly developed increasingly sensitive devices capable of detecting vibrations so subtle that they barely registered on conventional instruments. It was as if the ether itself held messages from a parallel reality, waiting only for someone with the technology and courage to decipher them. The first unequivocal manifestation occurred on a cold December night in 1918, when Edison was working alone on a new version of his phonograph. The device, which should only reproduce the silence recorded in an empty room, began to emit sounds that resembled human voices whispering in an unknown language. Initially, the inventor attributed the phenomenon to electrical interference or equipment malfunctions, but the constant repetition of the same sound pattern and the increasing clarity of the voices forced him to recognize that he was facing something completely outside the scope of materialistic science. Over the following months, Edison secretly perfected what he would call the spiritual communication device, a complex combination of amplifiers, special coils, and crystals that he himself did not fully understand, but which functioned as a bridge between the visible and invisible worlds. The device captured not only sounds, but also luminous patterns that formed fleeting images in the air, like spectral photographs of people who no longer inhabited the physical plane. The first clear communication came through the voice of his mother, Nancy Edison, who had passed away decades earlier. The message was simple, but imbued with an emotion that transcended all the skeptical barriers the inventor had built throughout his life. She spoke of a garden of light where souls found peace and continued to learn, evolving through experiences that transcend the limitations of matter. Edison cried for the first time since childhood, not out of sadness, but from a deep relief at discovering that death was not the end of consciousness, but merely a transition to a more expansive and luminous form of existence. In the years that followed, Edison's secret laboratory became a center for interdimensional communication. Historical figures, deceased scientists, family members, and even strangers made contact through the increasingly sophisticated devices that the inventor obsessively developed. Each conversation revealed aspects of the afterlife that challenged all the religious and philosophical conceptions of the time. Souls were not ethereal entities floating on clouds, but active consciousnesses organized into complex societies working on projects that encompassed multiple dimensions of existence. Tesla himself, who had passed away a few years earlier, contacted Edison through the device on a spring afternoon, revealing that on the other side of life he continued to invent, but now with access to energetic principles that terrestrial physics would still take centuries to discover. He described laboratories made of pure light, where ideas materialized instantaneously, where electricity obeyed conscious will, and where every discovery contributed to the spiritual evolution of the cosmos. Tesla warned Edison about the dangers of prematurely divulging these discoveries, as humanity was not yet ready to integrate technology with spirituality without creating more conflict and destruction. Through these extraordinary communications, Edison understood that his earthly mission had always been to prepare the ground for a revolution far greater than the simple electrification of the world. Every light bulb lit, every sound reproduced, every image projected were steps on a journey that would culminate in the reunification of science and spirit, of material knowledge and eternal wisdom. His inventions were like letters of a cosmic alphabet that would one day allow humanity to read the messages written in the invisible frequencies of creation. During the interview, Edison described in striking detail the visions he received through his device. He saw cities built with an architecture of light that responded to the thoughts of its inhabitants, where colors had sounds and sounds generated geometric forms of indescribable beauty. He observed schools where spiritual masters taught through the direct transmission of knowledge, without the need for words or symbols, but only through the communion of consciousnesses vibrating at the same frequency of love and wisdom. The afterlife according to Edison, a revelation. Even more unsettling were his discoveries about the process of physical death. Through the accounts of the communicators, Edison understood that the moment of transition wasn't an isolated event, but the culmination of a gradual process beginning years before the body's departure. The soul initiated a progressive detachment from matter, forging increasingly stronger connections with spiritual dimensions until the final separation became natural and painless. Signs of this preparation manifested through prophetic dreams, sharpened intuitions, synchronicities, and a growing sensitivity to the invisible presences that always surround human beings. Edison revealed that he himself had begun experiencing these signs in recent years. His nights were populated by dreams, where he walked through luminous laboratories alongside inventors who had passed decades before, receiving instructions on projects that could only be completed after his own transition. During the day, he perceived familiar presences beside him, especially that of his first wife, Mary, who silently guided him through the most complex discoveries related to the spiritual communication device. The inventor confessed that his last official inventions were actually simplified versions of far more advanced technologies he received through interdimensional communications. The world wasn't yet ready for devices powered by thought energy or those allowing anyone to converse with their deceased loved ones. The premature revelation of these technologies could cause a collapse of social and religious structures, generating more chaos than enlightenment. But Edison also knew that the moment of revelation was approaching. A new generation of scientists and inventors would begin to emerge in the following decades, bringing with them an intuitive understanding of the spiritual laws governing the universe. These pioneers of the future would build bridges between Edison's discoveries and humanity's evolutionary needs, creating a civilization where technology served the development of consciousness, not just material comfort. At this point in the narrative, it's impossible not to recognize that these revelations transcend the limits of a simple historical interview. If you feel these words resonate with truths your soul already knows, if you recognize in Edison's experiences the signs of a greater reality permeating our existence, then you are part of that new generation of seekers he foresaw. Keep following these accounts. Subscribe to receive other revelations that have been kept secret for decades, for the time has come for humanity to awaken to its true spiritual nature through the knowledge that our great pioneers discovered but could not openly share. The interview took an even deeper turn when Edison described the most transcendental experience of his life, which occurred just a few weeks before that meeting with the young journalist. While working on a new configuration of his apparatus during an electrical storm, something extraordinary happened. The lightning striking West Orange created a unique energetic condition that enormously amplified the equipment's sensitivity. Suddenly, Edison not only heard voices from beyond, but was literally transported to the spiritual plane, maintaining his earthly consciousness while directly experiencing the afterlife. In this transcendental experience, Edison found himself in a luminous vastness where thousands of souls worked on collective projects of cosmic creation. He saw that every thought, every invention, every discovery made on Earth was simultaneously reflected and amplified in these higher dimensions, contributing to a grand work whose purpose was the spiritual evolution of the entire universe. He understood that his earthly obsession with electric light was actually a reflection of his greater spiritual mission, to help humanity reconnect with the divine light that is the source of all consciousness and creativity. During this experience, Edison was guided by a presence that identified itself as the cosmic architect. Not a personal deity, but a collective consciousness formed by all souls who had already achieved complete enlightenment. This presence showed him that each human being is actually a spiritual inventor, endowed with the ability to create realities through the focused power of the conscious mind. The difference between the physical and spiritual planes lies not in the nature of creation, but only in the density of the vibrations through which that creation manifests. The cosmic architect revealed to Edison that his next transition would not be an end, but a graduation to an infinitely larger laboratory, where he could work directly with the fundamental energies of creation. There, his inventions would not be limited by earthly materials, but could be built with pure light substances, responding instantly to the conscious intentions of their creator. Edison saw that on the other side, he would continue inventing, but now his discoveries would benefit not only earthly humanity, but spiritual civilizations spread across countless dimensions of existence. Even more impressive was the vision that all his earthly inventions were actually unconscious memories of technologies his soul already knew from past existences in other realities. The phonograph was a distant memory of devices capable of recording and reproducing not only sounds, but complete memories and experiences from past lives. The electric light echoed spiritual lighting devices that allowed souls to explore the darkest corners of consciousness, transforming psychological darkness into the light of wisdom. Edison understood that the process of invention had always been, in truth, a process of spiritual recollection. Each insight, each technical solution that seemed to come from nowhere was actually a fragment of eternal knowledge gradually being recovered by the embodied consciousness. True inventors don't create anything new, but serve as channels through which discoveries already existing in higher dimensions can be translated to the language and limitations of the material world. This understanding completely changed Edison's perception of the purpose of human life. Each person wasn't merely an individual striving for survival and material success, but a unique facet of cosmic creativity, tasked with bringing to Earth some specific fragment of universal wisdom. The professions, talents, passions, and even the sufferings of each human were carefully chosen tools to facilitate this mission between the spiritual and material world. The inventor revealed that in his later years, he had developed a special sensitivity for recognizing these spiritual missions in the people he met. He saw in the eyes of each individual sparks of light that indicated what cosmic discoveries they had come to translate to Earth. Some brought new understandings of love and human relationships. Others carried seeds of future technologies, and there were those whose mission was simply to radiate frequencies of peace and harmony that elevated the overall vibration of humanity. Edison confessed that his greatest discovery hadn't been the electric light bulb or the phonograph, but the understanding that human consciousness is itself the most sophisticated technology in the universe. Each conscious mind is an interdimensional communication device naturally tuned to the highest spiritual frequencies. The problem wasn't a lack of equipment to contact the spiritual world, but the materialistic conditioning that taught people to ignore the constant transmissions their own souls received from higher dimensions. Through his secret experiments, Edison discovered that anyone could develop this natural capacity for spiritual communication. No complex apparatus was necessary. Only the discipline to silence the mental noise of the material world and the courage to trust the intuitive impressions that arrived through the heart. Every meaningful dream, every sudden intuition, every seemingly impossible coincidence was, in fact, a message from the higher planes, offering guidance and encouragement for the earthly journey. The inventor explained that he had kept his spiritual discoveries secret not out of fear or shame, but out of a deep understanding of humanity's evolutionary cycles. Each revelation should arrive at the precise moment when the collective consciousness was prepared to integrate it constructively. Prematurely revealing the secrets of interdimensional communication could result in commercial exploitation, religious manipulation, or even warfare between nations trying to control these spiritual technologies. Edison predicted that the right time for these revelations would come when humanity faced crises so profound that it would be forced to question its basic assumptions about the nature of reality. Only when scientific materialism and religious dogmatism proved equally inadequate to solve the existential problems of the species would people be open to a revolutionary synthesis between science and spirituality. In the final words of the interview, Edison expressed his certainty that he wasn't dying, but preparing for birth into a broader dimension of existence. Just as a butterfly cannot explain flight to a caterpillar, incarnate souls cannot fully comprehend the freedom and powers that await beyond physical death. But through glimpses like those he had experienced with his spiritual communication device, it's possible to at least intuit the magnificence that awaits us. The inventor revealed that his final earthly days were being dedicated not to new material inventions, but to spiritual preparation for his next phase of existence. He meditated daily on the lessons received through interdimensional communications, gradually integrating his earthly consciousness with his eternal spiritual identity. He felt like an actor about to leave the stage after a long and successful performance, eager to remove the characterization and return to his true identity. Edison concluded the interview with a reflection that would echo through the years as his true message to humanity. He said that his whole life of inventions and discoveries had in fact been a long prayer, a constant dialogue with the creative forces of the universe. Every technical problem solved was a question posed to cosmic intelligence. Every solution found was an answer received from higher dimensions. true electricity didn't flow through copper wires, but through the subtle channels that connect all consciousnesses in an infinite network of love and wisdom. The role of the soul in the human journey, Edison explained, is not to suffer or sacrifice for a future reward, but to consciously experience the process of co-creation with divine forces. Each earthly life is an opportunity to translate specific aspects of spiritual perfection into the limitations of the material world, thus contributing to the gradual evolution of all reality. When the physical body becomes inadequate to continue this translation, the soul simply migrates to more sophisticated laboratories, where it can work with more refined tools in the same eternal work of conscious creation. The purpose of life is not to accumulate experiences or achieve personal goals, but to gradually awaken to our essential nature as individualized aspects of universal creativity. Each person is simultaneously a unique inventor and an instrument in the hands of the great inventor, contributing their particular perspective to a cosmic symphony that transcends any individual understanding. What remains when the body departs is not personal memories or achievements, but the unique contribution each soul offered to the development of universal consciousness. Thomas Edison passed away a few months after this extraordinary interview, taking with him secrets that only now, nearly a century later, are beginning to emerge from the obscurity imposed by the materialistic mindset of his time. But his final words, preserved in the recently discovered manuscript, continue to echo as an invitation for humanity to recognize its true spiritual nature and consciously assume its role as co-creator of realities that transcend the apparent limits of matter and time. The great inventor didn't die. He merely graduated to an infinite laboratory where his most extraordinary discoveries are yet to come.